Hello, my friends. Happy Sunday. We are back with another fun lesson. Did you guys remember what we studied last week? Yep. We started in the beginning of our Genesis journal, right? We started the beginning of Genesis when God created our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful world, right? And everything was so lovely. The sun, the moon, and the stars, the fish, the birds, the animals, the land, the sea, and the plants. Did you guys act it out? Yeah, me too. And then we got to man, and then God rested. So when he rested, that's where we ended. And we thought, this world is perfect. It's lovely. It's wonderful. God said it is very good. But if our world was very good at creation, what happened? Why is our world not quite as good now? Well, we're going to talk about that, but let me give you a quick little example. So a few days ago in Nashville, it snowed. Now, I love when it snows. Did you guys go out and play? Yeah, I saw a lot of pictures of you guys making teeny tiny snowmen. Some made even some pretty sizable snowmen. But I went out in the snow with Mr. Chris, and he was taking down some Christmas lights. And so, of course, I started wandering through my garden. And I was so happy because I looked through, and guess what I found? Daffodils. Now, they're not blooming yet, but they were tiny little daffodils shooting up through the dirt. And it just gave me such hope. And I was like, oh, just as God intended, beautiful flowers coming out of the ground. But guess what else I saw? These did not make me happy. Do you see these weeds? Look at the roots of these things. They were huge. Right next to my beautiful flowers coming up were nasty weeds that choke out my flowers. So I'm gonna have to get out there and I'm gonna have to work hard and I'm gonna have to pull these all out because they are nasty guys. So what happened? Why are there not just pretty flowers in my garden? Why are there weeds there? That's gonna kind of explain what happens in our story we're gonna talk about today. But before we even read it, I want to have you guys say something. Say, Jesus saves me. Did you say it? Say it really loud. Here we go. Ready? Jesus saves me and you and your parents and everybody that loves him, right? So that's the end of our story. Do you think that's a good idea that I shared the end of it before I started even telling you it? I don't usually do that, but I want you to remember that as we go through this whole story. All right? So I titled this story, Jesus Saves Me from the Weeds in My Garden. All right, are you ready? Here we go. So we ended last week with God creating our world. And the last things he created were animals. You remember all the animals? And man. So who was the first man? You're right. It was Adam. All right. Adam was something very different than the animals. Adam was created in God's image. That meant that God meant for man to love him and to serve him and spend time with him, right? But none of the animals would do that. None of the animals were created this way. Adam was the only human, but he wasn't alone. In the cool of the evening, he would spend time walking and talking with God. Could you imagine that? How beautiful it would be just to walk through a beautiful garden and talk with God. I can't wait for that. Adam would sleep in the grass, but he wasn't afraid. None of the animals would ever hurt him. Now, I've gone camping before and I have been afraid of some of the animals, okay? But animals could walk right up. A tiger could walk right up next to him. He wouldn't have to be afraid. None of the animals were going to hurt him. God cared for Adam so much, and God planted a garden and filled it with beautiful trees whose fruit was delicious to eat. He put Adam in the garden to care for it. So that was Adam's job, just to care for the garden. And he called that garden, can you guys tell me? The Garden of Eden. You are so right. It was perfect. There was not a weed in it. No weeds choking out those pretty flowers. So many beautiful trees to eat from and to find shade under. But there was one tree called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God said, don't eat from that one, because if you do, you'll surely die. Now, has your mom and dad ever said, don't do this, don't do that? And you were like, oh, baby, why are they telling you that? Because they don't want you to get hurt, right? This was the ultimate parental, don't do this or you're going to get hurt. God tells Adam, don't eat from this one tree. Now, that one and that one and that one and that one, sure. But this one, don't eat from that one because I don't want you to die. God had given Adam many wonderful gifts, but the greatest of all was his love and his friendship. Adam was happy because he only knew goodness. God would bring the animals to him and Adam would name the animals. How do you think he chose the name for each one of the animals? Have you guys drawn in your journal some of the pictures of animals? What would you call them? If you didn't listen to Adam's names, what would you call the animals? I hope I see some of your pictures. But none of the animals, so he could name them, they would be close to him, but none of them could talk to him. Finally, God said, it's not good that man should be all alone. I will make you a helpmate. So God caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep. Now, not one of those, yeah, Mom, I'm sleeping. No, it was a deep, deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, God took one of the ribs from Adam and he made a beautiful woman. God brought that woman to Adam and Adam was so surprised and so pleased. Now he had someone to talk with and to love. And he named her Eve. Oh, how he loved her. They would wander through the garden hand in hand, picking delicious fruit and taking care of God's garden together. Doesn't that sound perfect? Oh my goodness, that is a dream. That is paradise to me. Thinking about walking with my partner, walking with Mr. Chris through the garden, just picking fruit and watching things grow. Wow. Adam and Eve were happier than anyone else had ever been because they only knew goodness. They loved God, they loved each other, and they never even wanted to do anything wrong. Wow. Can you imagine how your heart would feel if you never wanted to do anything wrong? They were never sick. They were never tired. God had given them perfectly healthy bodies. Oh, I could use that. They never had to work hard. So like when I go in the garden, I love doing it, but it's hard work. My muscles get tired. I sometimes even get sweaty. I sometimes get bruises or cuts, right? But none of that. They just cared for the garden. It was lovely. They just had to care for each other and for the garden. They also were promised the most wonderful gift. Think about what would be the most wonderful gift you could think of. All right, here's what God promised them. God promised that if they would obey and not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they would never die. Wow, that is a huge promise, isn't it? That's a huge gift. How is that different from our world now? There's sickness here, right? There's pain and sadness and suffering. And yes, we even all were going to die, right? What happened? What happened that made our world change so much? Well, here's what it is. The very wicked devil was once an angel. Did you guys know that? Sitting up with heaven. He was an angel, but he did not stay good and pure like the other angels. He became selfish and wicked. So God sent him out of heaven. Oh, I can't imagine being kicked out of heaven. But the devil was so selfish and so wicked, God said goodbye and he kicked him out. The devil, being very, very evil, hated God. And he tried to fight against him. Not a good idea, but he really did not like God for sending him away. When the devil saw the beautiful world that God had created and the oh so happy Adam and Eve, who loved God so very much, he wanted to spoil God's beautiful, wonderful world. Can you believe it? That was his goal. That's pretty evil to want to spoil something that was so perfect. He wanted to make Adam and Eve as unhappy as he was. Uh-oh. So the devil disguised himself as a snake and he went to talk to Eve. Now, you notice it doesn't say he went and talked to Adam and Eve together. He pulled Eve by herself. You have to be careful. When you're off by yourself and you could only think for yourself, you don't have a friend with you, you could get fooled pretty easily. The devil said to her, "Did God really say you should not eat from any of the trees in the garden?" And Eve said, no, we can eat from every tree except for one. God says that we cannot eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or we will die. Then the devil told Eve a wicked lie. He said, you shall not surely die. God knows if you eat the fruit from that tree, you'll just be like him. You'll be as wise as God. Are we ever going to be as wise as God? No, there's no way. But the devil, he was filling Eve full of ideas. What would Eve believe? Would she believe God, or would she believe the devil? How many of you guys think that she should obey God and not eat from the tree? How many of you guys think, well, maybe that's not really what God meant, and we'll just give it a try? All right, let's see what Eve does. Eve went and stared at the tree. It was beautiful, and the fruit looked like it would taste so very good. She would like to be as wise as God. She would like to know good and evil. She also knew God commanded them not to eat from that one tree. What should she do? She chose to disobey God, to follow the devil, to disobey God. She picked some fruit from the forbidden tree, ate some, and gave some to Adam too. Now, if we were in class right now, this is where you would have a huge drum roll and our feet would be stomping on the ground, right? A horrible change came over Adam and Eve. They no longer wanted to be good. They didn't love God or each other. They had angry, selfish feelings in their hearts, and they began to do bad things. Adam and Eve no longer loved having God come to the garden. Why? Because they were afraid of God since they knew that they had disobeyed him. Do you ever do that when you disobey? Instead of just going and saying, I'm sorry, you just go and sneak and hide away and think, maybe nobody will notice. They hid themselves, and when God talked to them, Eve blamed the snake, the devil, right? And then Adam blamed Eve. So neither one of them said, I'm sorry, I did the wrong thing. God sent them out of the garden. They had sinned, and a perfect God could not live with sinning people. They couldn't live in his garden anymore. Life was very different. They had to work hard to grow food. So instead of just going and picking from a beautiful tree, they had to work. And the ground had thorns and thistles and weeds, just like our ground does now, right? And they often felt sad and sick and unhappy. Life was hard for them, as it's often hard for us. But God made another promise. Remember what I told you from the beginning? Yep. He promised he would make a way for all of us to be close to him again. And we know that promise is who? Jesus, right? All right. When Jesus died on the cross, he paid for our sins so that all of us who love Jesus and ask for forgiveness will one day, be able to be in heaven with God. So what hasn't changed since the days when Adam and Eve disobeyed? We all still have sin, right? And the devil still lies. But what has changed is that God sent his son. We just studied all about that at Christmas. God sent his son for us. So how do we put that in action, my friends? Stay close to God. Pray, talk to him. Check your heart. Who are you listening to? Are you off by yourself and you're listening to someone? Maybe you should check that out with a friend, or check that out with your mom or dad. And then ask Jesus to forgive you. Remember Adam and Eve, they blamed each other, or they blamed the snake. They wouldn't say, I'm sorry. That's it. That's all we have to do now is say, God, I'm sorry. Or Mom or Dad, I'm sorry. Whoever we've offended. And ask God to forgive us. Ask Jesus to forgive us. All right? I hope that helps you see how our world changed and why it is the way it is. I hope you guys are drawing your covers. I saw, let me see, Jane and Luke and Maddie and Karis and Selah all drawing their covers. And on Let's Talk Tuesday, we got to talk about some of our devotions this week. That was really fun. And I even got to hear some kids play some music. So I hope you guys will check us out and be with us all week long. But I'll be back with you next week. So work on those journals. Let me know how you're doing and have a great week. I love you guys.